Hi folks, this is Vardhan from Edureka. Rakesh and Dominic are saying hi. Hi guys. Pooja says hi, how are you doing? Thanks Pooja, I'm doing really good. How are you doing? Okay, great. So Sam says he's looking forward to the session. Great Sam, even I'm looking forward to a great session. So it seems like everyone has joined the session and can I start the session guys? Alright, great. So if you have any problem during the session, then you can just put your questions in the chat box and I will answer them right away. Alright? Okay. So I'm going to get started now. Guys, today I'm going to tell you why Splunk needs to be used for analyzing machine data. Because no matter what business you're in, your organization generates massive amounts of machine data, which has a lot of value. Splunk processes this machine data to gain some valuable insights. Insights that have the potential to take your business to the next level. So without further ado, let me show you the agenda for today. I will first tell you the sources from where machine data gets generated and what is the need for analyzing it. I will then talk about the role Splunk plays in IT organizations for analyzing machine data and show you how Splunk is the best in the market. After that, I will give you an example of Domino's Pizza who's using Splunk for data analytics. Finally, I will show you how Splunk works by explaining the different components involved in the process and the working architecture of Splunk. So let's get started, folks. Analyzing data is needed because the solution to many problems are hidden inside machine data. Analyzing machine data can help us understand our customer behavior and their needs so that we can provide better quality of service. Machine data can be used to alert system administrators about any security threats. It will also have the reason why a particular system failed, and most of all, analyzing machine data can help us improve the performance of our machines. Now, these are some of the reasons why it is important to collect and manage data. But it is not easy to deal with machine data because it is one of the most complex forms of big data. Any IT company must deal with data coming from various machines like sensors, network and cloud devices, Internet of Things devices, mobile devices, and website logs. Data coming from these devices are unstructured and they look like this. This data is very complex for a common man to understand, and well, iPhone cannot decode this data. And since it's also in an unstructured format, we need a tool that can understand machine data so that it does the processing and brings it to human readable form. Okay, so I have a question already. Sam is asking me, give me an example of unstructured data. Okay, Sam, an example of unstructured data can be either analog data or binary data. So any random data, right? Or another example can be simply any data that is used by audio or video files. Okay, Sam? Okay, great. So getting back to my slides, another reason why we need a data processing tool is because we cannot do analysis with raw machine data. And because this machine data has a lot of hidden value, we need to make use of it, right? Yeah, and that's how Splunk came into the picture. You can feed the machine data to Splunk, which will do the dirty work of data processing for you. Splunk will process and extract only the relevant information, using which you will be able to easily locate where and what the problems were. Splunk can leverage the machine data to do the following. You can analyze the performance of your systems. You can search your data and investigate the reason for a particular outcome. You can troubleshoot any failure condition. You can create dashboards to visualize and analyze results. You can keep a track of how your business is doing by monitoring business metrics. And you can store data which you might want to use at a later point of time. Okay, so I have another question here from Pooja. She's asking me, is Splunk only for analyzing machine data? No, Pooja, Splunk is not for only analyzing machine data. Alright, see, Splunk started off as a tool that analyzes log data and machine data, but over time, Splunk has evolved and it's become more of a data analysis tool now. Okay, you can just feed any type of data to Splunk, like website logs coming from Apache server or any XML file, or even import data from any database like Oracle or MySQL. And then, Splunk can do the analysis on top of this data. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Great, Pooja. We'll move on. Okay, now guys, let me give you more details about Splunk and tell you what exactly Splunk is capable of. Splunk is a software platform to search analyze and visualize the machine-generated data gathered from websites, applications, sensors, and other devices which make up your IT infrastructure. Now, let me tell you a few advantages of Splunk. First of all, Splunk can be used for real-time analytics. If you have a machine which is generating data continuously and you want to analyze the machine state in real time, then you can use Splunk. So look at this image, guys, which shows how Splunk pulls data from multiple systems in real time. This real-time processing of data is Splunk's biggest selling point because we've seen storage devices get better and better over the years. We've seen processors become way more efficient with every aging day, but not data movement. This technique has not improved, and this is the bottleneck in most of the processes with an organization. So another advantage is that Splunk can accept any data type. Like I said earlier, it can accept any CSV file or any JSON file or logs in any other format. This is a very big advantage over other analytics tools because there is no limitation with respect to the type of data that I can feed to Splunk. Okay, so I have another question here from Rakesh. He says, can I forward the real-time logs to many systems? Yes, Rakesh, absolutely. You can collect the logs from one system and forward it to multiple systems at the same time, and you can also collect logs from multiple systems and send them to either one destination or multiple destinations. Okay? Yes, great. Okay, you're clear now. All right. So getting back to the advantages, the third advantage is that you can configure Splunk to monitor your machine continuously, and you can set alerts or reminders which will notify you when a particular system state is reached. So when something happens to your machine, it will automatically give you a reminder. So that is the thing here. So with the help of Splunk, you can scale up your infrastructure accurately because you can measure the existing infrastructure's performance and predict exactly how many systems are needed to perform the tasks. And this operation is called horizontal scalability. And last but not the least, you can set up knowledge objects for gaining operational intelligence. Okay, so I have another question here that's coming from Venki. He says, what is a knowledge object? Okay, Venki, a knowledge object is a user-defined entity for extracting different kinds of knowledge from the existing data or the runtime data. So an example of knowledge object can be saved searches or alerts, reports, reminders, and many more. Well, basically we use this to create and set up some kind of intelligence to our system. All right, and this is what differentiates Splunk from Hadoop. All right, Venki. Okay, great. Okay, now I have another question from Avnish. He's asking me the difference between Splunk and Hadoop. Okay, Avnish, Hadoop is more of a big data storage and analysis platform. Okay, whereas Splunk is more of an analysis and BIE tool. And this allows us to do visualization, set up alerts or reminders and things like that. Now, do note that Hadoop is a framework, but Splunk is a tool. Okay, and another important difference between the two is Splunk can do real-time processing and real-time analysis, whereas Hadoop does only batch processing. So the concepts might be a little clear now. Is it? Okay, great. So there's also a plugin to integrate both Splunk and Hadoop, and that plugin is called Hunk. Okay, so I'm going to move forward, all right? Okay, so guys, before I go to the next topic, where I will talk about the use case of Splunk and talk about how the different components interact, I want to quickly give you an idea about the different tools in the market and show you how they compete against each other. I have compared Splunk's functionality against Sumo Logic and ELK because they are among the most widely used in the market and they provide a good representation of the different types of tools available. And some other popular tools are Loggly, Greylog, and Papertrails. So guys, getting started with the features, searching, analysis, and visualization are the most important functionalities of all these three tools, and it's possible with all of them. Okay, but it's a little complicated to set up the environment with the ELK because ELK is a combination of three tools: Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. And since these three tools need to be integrated with each other, doing these three operations would be a little complicated. Now let's talk about the nature of these tools. Splunk is a proprietary tool which provides both an on-premise and a cloud setup. The difference between an on-premise and a cloud setup lies in where you are storing your data. So if you're going for an on-premise setup, you can go for either Splunk Lite or for Splunk Enterprise. But whereas if you're going for a SaaS setup, then you can go for Splunk Cloud. All right. Sumo Logic is again a proprietary tool, but it offers only a cloud setup. This means all your data is stored only on the cloud. And ELK is similar to Splunk. It can be installed both on-premise as well as set up on the cloud. Their cloud platform is called Elastic Cloud. So the bottom line here is that both Splunk and Sumo Logic are proprietary software, and you pay for a wide range of functionality. Whereas ELK is open source and cheaper. So if you work for a smaller or medium-sized company, proprietary software might not be the best option because you might be paying for a whole lot of features that you might not use. So next, let me tell you about the different types of data that these tools can accept. Splunk claimed that their tool can accept any data in any format, like for example a .csv or a JSON or any other log format. Even Sumo Logic, for that matter, claimed that their tool can collect logs from almost any system in nearly any format. But in case of ELK, Logstash is responsible for collecting the data and for data onboarding, and it does not support all the data types by default. But however, plugins can be set up for importing the different data types. So moving on to integrations, I found that Splunk is very good for setting up integrations with other tools. It has around 600 plugins for IT operations, security, and other needs. Well, although ELK is seeing an increased number of available plugins, it does not support as many as Splunk does, and it currently has only around 160 plugins, and work is ongoing for more integrations. When I was working on Splunk, I could ask questions on the customer forum, and many of my questions got answered there. But it wasn't the same case with Sumo Logic and ELK, and I got stuck many times with no help. And that's why I feel Splunk has a better support than the other two. And when it comes to documentation, I found Splunk's knowledge base has an accurate documentation for setting up clusters and plugins. But with Sumo Logic, I did not find the documentation to be as good as I expected, and I had a tough time learning a few things and navigating through the documentation. Okay, so I have another question here that's coming from Vineet. He's asking, which is the best tool among the three? Okay, Vineet. See, like I said earlier, all three of these tools have their own advantages and categories in which they are better than the other. But in my experience of working with these tools, I found Splunk to be the best because it was a one-stop solution for all needs, and it was also very easy to get started with. And yeah, so that's the reason why Splunk is my favorite tool. So some of you might have worked on some other tools too, and you may have a different opinion, and you are welcome to put that forward by posting in the comments section below. And in case you guys want a more detailed comparison of these tools, then you can read the blog that I've written. And I'm just going to ping you the link to that blog in the chat box, and you can probably read the blog after the class is over. All right? Great, folks. So now that we've done with the comparison of these tools, let me tell you why Domino's were using Splunk and what they achieved by implementing it. After that, I will explain how Splunk works by presenting you a hypothetical use case scenario of Domino's Pizza. So you might be aware that Domino's Pizza is an e-commerce cum fast food giant, but you might be unaware of the big data challenge that they were facing. They wanted to understand their customers' needs and cater to them more effectively by doing data analysis. And that's where Splunk came to the rescue. So as you can see from the image, Domino's had an omni-channel presence in the market. They had several touch points for interacting with customers, and they provided multiple systems for delivery, like people could order food in store, order via their telephone, via their website, and through cross-platform mobile applications. And to top it all off, they also had a huge customer base. These were the reasons why lots of unstructured data was generated, and it gave rise to many problems, like any searching of data manually became tedious and error prone. They had less visibility as to how the needs vary from one customer to another customer. And when any problem arises in the process, they were caught off guard and had to work in a reactive mode to fix it. And that was when Domino's felt that the solution to these problems would lie in a tool which can easily process data. And they started implementing Splunk. Domino set up many new applications using Splunk. They set up interactive maps for showing all the orders coming from across US in real time. They set up a means for getting feedback from their customers in real time. They set up dashboards to keep track of scores and set weekly targets. They use Splunk to analyze the speeds of different payment modes and identify the most error-free payment mode. And they set up a means to track how various promotional offers are performing in real time. Because before implementing Splunk, knowing the impact of promotions used to take almost an entire day. And they also set up a means to monitor the performance of Domino's in-house sales team. Using Splunk proved to be so beneficial to Domino's that teams outside their IT department started exploring the possibility to use Splunk. While I discussed how Domino's Pizza are using Splunk for operational efficiency, here are a few more companies which are using Splunk for various purposes. Mainly those companies which are dealing with IoT devices are Cisco, Bosch, IBM and Motorola. Companies like Intuit, Pepsi, Salesforce and Facebook are among the other companies which are using Splunk majorly. Now that you're aware of the famous companies that are using Splunk for different purposes in their own ways, it's time I talk about some technical details about Splunk, like how Splunk works internally by explaining the functionality of the different Splunk components. So there are three main components. They are the forwarder, indexer, and the searcher. The forwarder falls under the data input stage. The indexer falls under the data storage stage. The storage stage consists of two subphases. They are the parsing stage and the indexing stage. Okay, and then the searcher falls under the data searching stage. So the forwarder basically collects the data from the source and forwards it to the indexer. And the forwarder can collect data from multiple sources in real time and forward it to the indexer. So the indexer, as you can see here, performs two main tasks. It does parsing and indexing. It does parsing so that all the irrelevant data and the junk data is eliminated and only those relevant data is indexed for storage. And then once the data is stored, then the searcher can perform various functions on the data that is stored in the indexer. Because the searcher is the graphical component which provides an interface to the users for performing various operations like searching, analysis, and visualization. To help you understand this data flow better, let me get back to the example of Domino's and show you how the data moves through the deployment pipeline. Do note that the following example of promotional data that I'm going to make is hypothetical in nature and the data present might not be accurate. So folks, Domino's were running many marketing activities at that time, okay? And since they were into a fast-moving business, they could not easily figure out which was a better promotional offer, a 10% discount offer or a flat $2 offer. They also wanted to know if consumer behavior and needs changes with different geographies. They wanted to determine which was the customer's preferred time and the preferred device to make the purchase. And most importantly, they wanted to know if an offer or a coupon plays a role in the customer's order size. So if you can look at this image, they collected the data generated during promotions from various sources like mobile devices, website orders, and offline orders and sent them to the remotely located indexers. The data forwarded contained information like the offer or the coupon redeemed by the customers, the time when they made the purchase, and the device used, and so on. If you can recall from what I explained earlier, the indexer mainly processes this data by extracting the relevant information and storing it locally. Relevant information being the customers who respond to the offers, the time at which they responded, and the device used for redeeming the coupons or offers. Basically, the data that was stored in the indexer was the number of sales happening in a particular geography, the total order revenue that was generated based on customer response, the time when the products were purchased, the device preferred by the customers for placing the order, and which were the most used coupons. They have performed various operations on this data using a search ad, which gives a graphical user interface. They discovered that in US and Europe, customers preferred a 10% discount instead of a $2 offer, whereas in India, customers were more inclined to a flat $2 offer. They learned that 10% discount coupons were used more when the order revenue size was large, whereas a flat $2 coupon was used more when the order revenue size was small. And they also realized that customers preferred to use mobile apps for ordering during the evenings and websites for ordering in the afternoon, whereas customers walking into the stores and making purchases was most before noon. Domino's used these results to customize the offers with respect to order revenue sizes for customers from a particular geography. They also determined which was the best time to give offers and targeted those customers based on the device they were using. Let me now explain the concept of distributed searching and show you how the data flows through the different Splunk components along with the deployment server. As you can see from this image, we have three forwarders which collect the data from the source and forward them to a couple of indexers. These indexers process the data. The searcher receives a search request from the user and sends it to the indexer. The indexer then searches the data locally and can also distribute that search request to another indexer. And when this happens, That indexer which distributes the search request is called a search peer. Generally, a search head sends search requests to a group of indexers or a search peer which perform the actual searches on their indexes. The search head then merges the results and sends them back to the user. This is a fast technique to search data called distributed searching. In addition to these components, there's another component called the management console host. Management console host acts as a centralized configuration manager responsible for distributing configurations, app updates, and content updates to deployment clients. The deployment clients are forwarders, indexers, and search heads. Okay, so I have another question here that's coming in from Sam. He's asking, what if there's a loss of data while forwarding it? Okay, Sam, so that's not something to worry about because we have dedicated load balancers which will route the data smoothly across different channels to the indexer. And you can even forward the data to multiple indexers, right? So even if one indexer fails, you will have another indexer which will come up and keep the process up and running. All right? So think of it like high availability. That's how this concept is. All right? Okay, great, Sam. So moving forward, this is how Splunk works in general. It's a very simple yet effective way to transfer data that is generated from your machines, right? But there may be more complicated scenarios where organizations feel that they have lots of data that needs to be processed instantly, and Splunk's universal forwarders take a lot of time and are just not built for that purpose. So let me talk about such a scenario and show you how Splunk can get out of such tricky situations. So many times you may be thinking that your machines generate lots of terabytes of data and it is not feasible to forward all the data from the source. Because more the data, greater the challenges. Because time taken to forward the data is going to be more. Cost for indexing that data is going to increase and inevitably resulting in more bandwidth. So it is important that you control the data that is forwarded. Now, speaking of data forwarding, wouldn't it be better to do data processing at the source itself? Why go through the trouble of transferring all the data to the indexer? Discarding the relevant data and forwarding only the relevant data which is going to be useful makes more sense, right? Yes, and for exactly that purpose, there's a tailor-made forwarder component called the heavy forwarder. It does one level of data processing at the source itself before forwarding the data to the indexer. It typically does parsing, indexing, and also intelligently routes the data to the indexer, thus saving on bandwidth and storage space. So basically, when a heavy forwarder is used, the indexer only needs to handle the indexing segment. How awesome is that, huh? Yeah, that's what I figured. And I have also another question here that's coming in from Pooja. She's asking me, what is the cost of Splunk? Okay, so Pooja, the Splunk enterprise license, which includes all the Splunk components, it costs around $4,500 for every 1 GB of data that you're going to index. All right. And it also depends upon which package you're going for. If you're going for a 1 GB a day package, then you'll be paying around $4,500 for that 1 GB that you're going to index. And if you're going for a 10 GB a day package, then for every 1 GB that you index, you'll be paying around $2,500. So this concept is more like the greater your data that you're indexing, the lesser the amount you pay. Okay. So this is what the price was the last time I checked. This might have changed also. So it's better you go to the Splunk's official website and checking the official pricing there. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, let me now show you the architecture of Splunk, which also gives a consolidated view of the various components involved in the process and their functionalities. A Splunk command line interface or a Splunk web interface is used to interact with the search head. The communication happens via a REST API. You can use a search head to make distributed searches, set up knowledge objects for operational intelligence. You can do reporting with the search head and also do scheduling and alerting. You can run scripts for automating data forwarding from remote Splunk forwarders to predefined network ports. You can monitor the files coming in at real time and analyze if there are any anomalies and set alerts or reminders accordingly. You can do routing, cloning, and load balancing of the data that is coming in from the forwarder before they are stored in the indexer. You can also create multiple users, each with restricted access, to perform various operations on the index data. Okay, I have another question here from Rakesh. He's asking me, do I need to manually configure what needs to be collected? Yeah, Rakesh, basically you need to go to your configurations and set exactly what you want to collect and mention the source from where it's coming. Okay? You can also specify to which location it should go by giving the IP address of your destination. So that's how it works. Okay, so there's another question here, and that's coming in from Dominic. He's asking, can I send the same logs to many systems? Yes, Dominic, you can send it to any number of systems by simply specifying the IP in the configurations. Supposing you want to send it to 5 different destinations, then you can give those 5 different IPs in the configurations, and the data will be forwarded there in real time. Okay? Alright. So guys, by now you know why Splunk is the most prominent data management tool in the market. Let me back you up by showing you the increased job trend for Splunk. As you can see from this graph, the number of job openings for Splunk has grown rapidly since 2012. In fact, in 2016, this trend has increased even more. So if you want to grab one of these jobs, then you can assume the role of either a Splunk architect, or a Splunk administrator, or a Splunk developer. And these roles are open in domains like finance, manufacturing, IT, retail trade, and technical services, and many more. We at Edureka provide full-fledged Splunk certification training. Those of you who are interested in learning Splunk can check out our course by going to our website at www.edureka.co/Splunk. Do note that we provide live online trainings on weekends. You also have the flexibility to choose the batch which will best suit your timings. So what you see on your screen here are a few customer reviews that we received on this course. Okay, so I have another question here from Pooja. She's asking me, do you provide assistance for learning? And there's another question that I have from Dominic. He's asking, what if I'm stuck sometime during the practicals? Will I get assistance from you? Okay, so yeah, absolutely guys. We provide 24/7 support to all our customers. So we have a dedicated team with technical expertise just for assisting you people throughout your learning phase. This support is also for lifetime. That is, even after your live classes get over, you can get in touch with our support team and you can start learning. Okay, and you can get in touch with them via either email or your phone. Okay, so folks, that brings us to the end of the session. I hope you learned some new concepts and enjoyed taking part in the session. I will get in touch with you folks for more sessions like this. Alright? Okay, see you guys.
Please be kind enough to like this video, and you can comment any of your doubts or queries, and I'll reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning.